My family told me I was worthless. They disowned me, cut me off, and laughed when I had nothing. But years later, I walked back into their lives with more money than all of them combined, and they had no choice but to beg me for help. If you've ever dreamed of proving everyone wrong, smash that like button, subscribe to Red Silk Revenge, and get ready for one of the most satisfying family revenge stories you'll ever hear. I remember the exact moment my world collapsed. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day when families gather around the table, share food, laugh, and talk about their dreams. But for me, that Sunday turned into the day I learned what betrayal from your own blood really feels like. I had just turned 21. Most people my age had some sort of direction. They were either in college, working, or at least had a family that believed in them. Me? I was stuck. I'd failed out of college after struggling with depression. My job barely paid enough to cover gas, and the weight of disappointment from my parents and siblings hung over me like a storm cloud. At first, I thought they just wanted what was best for me. But over time, the way they spoke to me changed. They stopped saying, "You'll figure it out," and started saying things like, "You're dragging us down." That Sunday dinner was supposed to be a normal meal. My mom cooked her famous roast, my dad sat at the head of the table, and my siblings chattered about their jobs, their relationships, their successes. I tried to join in, but every word out of my mouth felt small compared to theirs. Then it happened. My dad put his fork down, cleared his throat, and looked me straight in the eye. "We've had enough," he said flatly. I froze. "Enough of what?" "Of you," he replied, his voice sharp as a knife. "You failed school, you can't hold a real job, and frankly, you're nothing but dead weight." The words sliced through me. My siblings didn't defend me. My mother didn't comfort me. Instead, my older brother chuckled. "Dad's right. You're pathetic." I tried to swallow the lump in my throat, but my voice cracked. "I'm trying. Trying isn't enough," my father snapped. "You're disowned. Don't bother coming back until you've done something with your life." Felt like the floor vanished beneath me. My own family, people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, had just cut me off like I was nothing. That night, I packed my things into a trash bag. No suitcase. No hugs. No goodbyes. Just the sound of my brother muttering "good riddance" as I walked out the door. I slept in my car for weeks. Showers became a luxury at the local gym. Meals were dollar menu scraps. And every single night, their words echoed in my head. Pathetic, worthless, dead weight. The thing about being abandoned by your own family is, it doesn't just hurt. It brands you. It sears itself into your skin until you either give up or fight back. And at first, I wanted to give up. I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I really was nothing. But somewhere deep inside, a tiny ember refused to die out. It whispered, "What if they're wrong? What if you could prove them wrong?" That ember kept me alive. I started picking up odd jobs, cleaning, delivering, working overnight shifts. Every dollar I earned, I saved. I read books at the library on business, finance, anything that could help me climb out of the hole I was in. I scribbled ideas in cheap notebooks by the dim light of my car's interior bulb. I was still broke, still homeless, but slowly, something was changing. The anger I once felt turned into fuel. Their rejection became my motivation. I wasn't going to prove them wrong with words. I was going to prove them wrong with success so undeniable, they'd choke on their laughter. And little did they know, the worthless son they cast aside was about to become someone they'd regret underestimating. Because revenge, the kind that really cuts deep, isn't loud or violent. It's living the life they said you never could, while they're forced to watch. And that was the seed of my revenge. The nights were the hardest. Cold air seeping into my car. The smell of fast food wrappers piling up. The endless sound of my own doubts whispering, "You'll never make it." But you know what? There's something about hitting rock bottom. It strips away all illusions. When you've got nothing left, you stop fearing failure, because you're already living it. I worked 3 jobs just to survive. Janitor during the day, delivery driver in the evening, and stock boy overnight. My body ached constantly, but I kept pushing. Each paycheck was a lifeline, and I refused to waste a single dollar. While my siblings were out partying, buying new clothes, living off the comfort of family money. I was showering in a gym bathroom and eating ramen in my car. I made a vow. Every dollar I saved would be invested in myself. Not in fancy clothes, not in nights out, in knowledge. So I lived at the library, literally. Every free hour I had, I devoured books on business, marketing, startups, finance, psychology, anything that could give me an edge. I didn't have professors or mentors, but I had an endless hunger to learn. That's when I stumbled onto a book about technology startups. It was filled with stories of people who had nothing, garage tinkerers, broke kids, outsiders, and yet they built empires. One line struck me so hard I wrote it down and carried it in my pocket. They didn't wait for permission to succeed. They created their own. That line became my compass. I started experimenting with small side hustles. At first, it was selling secondhand electronics online. I'd find old laptops people were throwing away, clean them up, fix minor issues, and flip them for profit. The first time I sold one for $200, I nearly cried. Not because of the money, but because it was proof. Proof that I wasn't useless. Within months, I was making more flipping electronics than from my janitor job. So I quit one job, then another until I was focused entirely on my hustle. But I wasn't satisfied. I wanted something bigger. My big break came when I noticed small businesses in my area had terrible online presence. Their websites were outdated. Some didn't even have social media. I thought, what if I learned to build websites for them? So, I taught myself coding through free tutorials and late nights on borrowed Wi-Fi. I practiced until my fingers cramped. My first client was a local bakery. They laughed when I offered to build them a website for just $300. But I delivered, and within weeks, their sales doubled. Word spread. Suddenly, small businesses were calling me. That's when I realized I wasn't just making money. I was building something. But here's the thing about growth. It's addictive. Every little win lit a fire in me. I no longer thought about proving my family wrong. I was proving myself right. I registered my first company, a small digital solutions business. I hired freelancers I found online, people like me who were hungry and underestimated. Together, we worked out of coffee shops and libraries, building websites, managing social media, running ads. Within 2 years, my trash bag dropout life was gone. I had my own apartment, my own office, and employees who called me boss. My business pulled in 6 figures a year. But I wasn't satisfied. No, I wanted more. Because every time I saw a new paycheck, every time I walked into a meeting wearing a suit instead of a janitor's uniform, I remembered my father's voice, "You're dead weight. You're disowned." And I swore to myself I wouldn't just succeed. I would dominate. I would build something so massive, so undeniable, that the same family who threw me out like garbage would have no choice but to see me as the one thing they never believed I could be: powerful. What I didn't realize then was that fate had already lined up the perfect opportunity for me. A deal so big it would turn me from a small business owner into a multimillionaire. And when that moment came, the tables would finally turn. Success has a funny way of snowballing. One small win becomes another, and before you know it, the world starts paying attention. My small digital solutions company had grown beyond my wildest dreams. What started with fixing old laptops in a library turned into a bustling agency with dozens of clients. But I wasn't done. I wanted to build something far bigger than websites. I wanted to own a legacy. The turning point came during a meeting with a local restaurant chain. They needed more than just a website, they needed a full digital strategy. Online ordering, mobile apps, targeted ads. I told them I could deliver it all, even though, truthfully, I didn't yet know how. But I figured it out. I built partnerships with developers overseas, streamlined processes, and delivered a system that transformed their business. That contract alone brought in more money than I'd made in my entire first year. And it opened the door to something I hadn't expected. Investors. Suddenly, people who once wouldn't have given me the time of day were lining up to hear my ideas. Venture capitalists, angel investors, wealthy entrepreneurs. I was in rooms I'd only seen in movies. They wore Rolexes and tailored suits, sipping $20 lattes while asking me, the former family disgrace, to explain my vision, and I told them, I'm building a platform to help small businesses scale in the digital age. A one-stop solution that could handle everything from marketing to e-commerce. They loved it. The funding poured in. Within months, my little agency exploded into a tech startup. We moved into a sleek downtown office with glass walls, modern furniture, and a team of 50 employees buzzing with ideas. I went from eating ramen in my car to shaking hands with CEOs at conferences in New York and San Francisco. Money followed success like a shadow. 6 figures became 7, then 8. My company was valued in the tens of millions. My name started showing up in business magazines, articles calling me the dropout who defied the odds. And yet, through it all, there was a voice in the back of my head. The memory of standing in my parents' driveway holding a trash bag while they told me I was dead weight. Every deal I closed, every check I cashed, every speech I gave, it all felt like fuel for that fire. Then came the sweetest twist of fate. At a major industry event, I was introduced to a powerful investor looking for a partner. His name? Mr. Caldwell, a billionaire with connections across the globe. And guess what? He also happened to be a major business partner of my father. The same father who told me I'd never amount to anything. The same man who disowned me without blinking. Caldwell didn't know the history, of course. He just saw me as a young entrepreneur with drive and a company on the rise. We hit it off immediately. He invited me to dinners, meetings, and even his private estate. And every time I sat across from him, I thought, does my father know? Has he heard my name yet? Does he realize his failure son is climbing higher than he ever imagined? It wasn't long before Caldwell suggested something bigger. A joint venture that would not only multiply my wealth, but also place me in direct business with the same circles my family worshipped. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't just climbing the ladder of success anymore. I was about to walk into the very world my family thought they'd shut me out of forever. Except this time, I wouldn't be the outsider. This time, I'd be the one at the head of the table. That I'll never forget the night it all came full circle. I had just finalized the deal with Mr. Caldwell, the billionaire investor who also happened to be deeply connected to my father's business network. My company's valuation had skyrocketed, and suddenly, I wasn't just doing well. I was a power player in the same industry my father used to dominate. Caldwell invited me to a high-profile gala. Black ties, chandeliers, champagne towers. The kind of event where deals worth hundreds of millions were whispered over a glass of wine. As I walked in, every eye turned. The dropout, the failure, the disgrace was now a name on everyone's lips. And then, I saw them. My family.my father, with his signature stiff posture and the same cold expression he wore when he threw me out years ago. My mother, who couldn't even meet my eyes back then. My siblings, all polished in designer suits, pretending like they belonged. And when they saw me, their jaws dropped. I wasn't the scrawny, defeated kid they disowned. I was dressed in a tailored suit, my watch alone worth more than their car, surrounded by executives and investors treating me with reverence. I didn't need an introduction. The announcer had just called me to the stage as the keynote speaker. As I stood at that podium, looking out at the crowd, my eyes locked with my father's. For a moment, the room disappeared, and it was just us. Him, the man who told me I'd never be anything, and me, the son who turned that pain into an empire. That I gave my speech about resilience, vision, and proving people wrong. Every line was like a blade, and though I never mentioned names, the message couldn't have been clearer. When it ended, the applause thundered. People stood, cheering, shaking my hand. And my family? They sat frozen. My father's face was pale, his lips pressed into a hard line. My mother looked like she wanted to cry. My siblings whispered among themselves, pretending to smile, but I saw the envy burning in their eyes. Later that evening, they approached me. Son, my father started, his voice forced. It's impressive what you've built. We should talk. I almost laughed. The audacity. This was the same man who said I wasn't his problem anymore, who left me on the street like garbage. I looked at him, calm, collected, and said, "Funny, I don't recall you wanting to talk when I had nothing. Why now?" His face tightened, but he tried again. Families have disagreements. We're still blood. We should work together. And that's when I leaned in, lowered my voice so only he could hear, and whispered the words I had waited years to say. You disowned me. Remember? That door swings only one way. You shut it. Now you don't get to walk back through. His eyes widened, and for the first time in my life, I saw him speechless. The man who always had control had none. I straightened up, smiled, and walked away, surrounded by people who respected me, admired me, valued me. That night, I didn't just win. I rewrote the story. The boy they threw away had come back, not for acceptance, but for victory. And they knew it. The weeks after that gala were nothing short of poetic. Word spread fast in our industry about me, my company, and the empire I was building. Suddenly, journalists wanted interviews. Magazines called me the dropout who defied the odds. Clients lined up to sign contracts with my firm. And then, almost like clockwork, my family started reaching out at first. It was subtle. An email from my brother, congratulating me on my success and suggesting we grab dinner. Then it was my sister, saying she'd love to catch up. And finally, my mother, leaving a voicemail that cracked with emotion. Honey, we just want to be a family again. We miss you. But let's be clear, they didn't miss me. They missed the wealth, the status, the power I now carried. And the irony? I didn't need them anymore. I ignored most of their attempts, but one message stuck with me, my father's. A single line. We should join forces. Together, we can dominate this industry. I stared at that email for a long time. The same man who told me I was nothing, who spat me out of his life like I was trash, was now asking to stand beside me. And I realized something in that moment. Revenge isn't just about payback. It's about reclaiming power, about showing the people who doubted you that their opinion no longer matters. So I replied, no, father, you made your choice, and I made mine. You tried to bury me, but you forgot. I was a seed. Now I've grown roots too deep for you to touch. I hit send, and for the first time in my life I felt completely free. From then on, I focused on my own path. My company flourished. I invested in people who had been overlooked, the way I once was. I gave opportunities to underdogs, to dreamers, to those who were told they'd never make it, because I knew what that pain felt like. As for my family, their empire began to crumble. Poor decisions, outdated strategies, internal fighting. The same arrogance that once pushed me out eventually ate them alive. And me? I didn't need to lift a finger. Karma was already doing its job. One day, I passed by their old headquarters, once a towering symbol of their dominance, now half empty, with a for sale sign leaning against the wall. I stood there for a moment watching employees carry boxes out, and I smiled, not because I wanted to see them suffer, but because life had a way of balancing the scales. The family that disowned me ended up with nothing, and the son they threw away ended up with everything. The sweetest revenge wasn't money. It wasn't power. It was the peace of knowing I'd built a life on my own terms, and that no one could ever take it away again. When people betray you, when they doubt you, when they try to break you, sometimes the best revenge isn't screaming in their face or begging for them to see your worth. Sometimes the best revenge is silent. It's success. It's showing up years later so far above where they thought you'd ever be, that they can't even reach you anymore. Because in the end, karma has perfect memory. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories like this. Because trust me, there are plenty more tales of betrayal, karma, and ultimate payback coming your way. This was Red Silk Revenge, and remember, sometimes the sweetest victory is patience, persistence, and just the right moment to strike.